All right. Welcome to the October 2024 public board meeting. Thank you all for joining us. Let's start with a quick call to order according to the names in front of me. Kevin.
Sorry,
Mute.
I had to find the unmute button. Here.
Ricardo.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Sam.
Here.
We also have Andrew, Star, Lauren, Dawn joining us from OWASP. Is that Kelly on the iPhone? Okay, yes, I'm guessing that's Kelly joining us. And of course, we have Chris and Leah from Charity CFO. Thank you all for joining us.
Bill's just joining.
And Bill is joining us as well.
Sorry, I'm
Bill,
late.
are you here?
Zoom decided that it needed an update and then said it couldn't update, and I don't know. I got it to work.
All right.
You got here just in time for the call to order. You're last on the list, Bill.
Yes, here.
And for the record, I am here as well. Before we get started, I'm going to read out the conflict of interest and antitrust statement. Of course, as you all know, we are all from various organizations as volunteers. OWASP and the board have to abide by all applicable antitrust and non-competition laws and so on. Any kind of perceived or actual conflict of interest or any kind of antitrust concern, you must declare it as necessary if there's any kind of conflict. And when relevant, you might need to recuse yourself from voting or even discussion, as the case may be. All right. We do have a very packed agenda, so I'm going to request that everybody try to keep their comments and questions focused as much as possible. We do need to have time for that as well. Andrew, did you want to add something to the agenda, or is that just
no? Luckily, we recounted the attendance, and it turns out everybody is okay. But I will have a slide on that.
fantastic? And there was another thing around one of the corporate supporters. Is that just going to be part of your executive summary?
It'd be a part of the executive summary. It's commercial in confidence, so I'm just going to be directing the board to actually review the post.
Fantastic. So no changes are necessary unless anybody has anything else. With all that being said, Andrew, I'd like to turn over to you for
minutes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Prior minutes. Yep.
We need to be in the September minutes. Thank you for having it open. Hope everybody read through this. We're going to take a quick vote on reading in the September minutes. Kevin.
Yes.
Ricardo.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Bill.
Abstain. I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know.
Fair enough. And that is a yes from me as well.
Okay.
For point of order, Bill, have you read the minutes?
I have not. Sorry.
And I do apologize for the late preparation of the materials. Being away for most of last week just put me behind so far. It was unbelievable. So I do apologize. I did get it out last night, but I do realize that's not enough time to review. Most of you review over the weekend. I will endeavor to do better in November and December. I do have some things. Shall we just get going?
Yes, and kudos on that three-way rhyming.
Okay. Okay, we had a very successful San Francisco event. I don't know that we've got the P&Ls just yet. So when we get to the finance report, we're probably going to have a better picture of the P&L for the San Francisco event in November's financial reporting. We've been paying the last few trainer splits and big bills. So I don't think that's reflected in this month's finance reporting. But it was a very successful event, and it's put us into a solid financial position. The Education Committee met this morning. Sam was there. Ricardo, we have found a couple of volunteers to be the vice chair that will be voted upon or brought to the the next meeting, which I believe is, we're just going to nail down who's going to be that person. We've got multiple volunteers prepared to be the vice chair.
All right.
So that's a
Good.
fantastic position to be in. Last week I was in Los Angeles, as I said. The restraining order was granted, so the lifetime member involved was granted a 100 foot or 30-yard or 30-meter restraining order. There was various conditions attached to that, but it doesn't really protect us. So what I would like you to do is, there is a post that I made to the global board list, but I'll start up a second post in the internal global board list with a request, whether we go down the pathway of asking for a restraining order for ourselves, or alternatively, do we just hire security guards to the same sort of value and hope he doesn't turn up? It's one of those things that could get expensive quick, and it's sort of, we don't know if he's going to turn up again. So I'd like advice. I'm going to ask it in the internal global board list. But based upon the restraining order that was granted, I think it would be a slam dunk for us to get a similar restraining order. It's just we have to have separate evidence that suits our purposes. We aren't the person who was granted the restraining order. We are ourselves. I'd also like to inform the ISSA of the outcome of that. I do have some initial feedback from the person who got the restraining order that ISSA are brushing it off as a matter between two individuals, when in fact it was a matter between ISSA and OWASP. So I think at this point in time, at the very least, I'd like to get a lawyer letter written to inform the ISSA and take your advice on what steps we will take until such time as they actually follow their own code of conduct. So I will follow that up in a subsequent email. Secure Flag is up for renewal. This is a very popular member benefit. It has some financial downsides to us. I have posted to the internal global board list. I would like your input and views before I go and meet with Andrea. I'm meeting with Andrea later this week. So this is actually very timely. It is due for a renewal. I believe December 1 is the renewal date. So if you could give your attention to that and give me your advice, that would be awesome. Arby.
We previously had this discussion a year ago at AppSec DC. Did anything change at that point? Did anything come up from that?
No, it was a 1 more year type of deal back then. And now it's up for its 2-year renewal. I think I'll be basically making it a 12-month renewal rather than a 2-year renewal. So we can do this on a more regular basis, like we do with the other member benefits. Relocation, I will be taking from the 13th of November, basically as soft annual leave. My house has been packed on the 18th. I would imagine that I'm going to be busy on the previous few days. I think it would be unfair to the organization to say that I'm going to be available. So I will be checking emails and checking in. I move to Australia. I leave on the 28th of November. So that will be hard annual leave. I will not be available for the following week from the 28th, which is Thanksgiving, through to the end of the 6th, because I need to get a phone, like my phone number sorted. I need to get internet sorted. I need to be able to live at the place that we've got and things like that. So I don't think it's realistic for me to do anything in that time. It's after the board meeting. I'll be able to do the November board meeting, no problems. We've got an Airbnb with Wi-Fi, so there won't be any issues with doing the November board meeting. But yeah, you got to be realistic in these situations. It's I just can't see myself taking meetings or doing anything unusual. The usual things. We really need to we got some interesting comments from a corporate supporter about the age of our projects and the way that they're presented. We really do need to put onto the board's strategic agenda, what are we going to do about our projects and how do we actually get them presented in a better way? Like if you type the word CISO into our search field, you get 10-plus-year-old stuff. And it's not very relevant. We really need to revitalize our projects. We've got plenty of projects that are active and busy. We need to highlight those. Yeah, Kevin.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to raise a hand. I thought that was the purpose of the web redesign
Yeah,
that had already been
So-
planned. So I'm not sure what the question is now.
it is related to that. But I think honestly, we need to do more than just revitalize our web front page, our landing page. We need to have a projects landing page as part of the redesign. So when we get to the web design part, let's talk about scope. I think projects, we need to bring that into alignment. Yeah, it was very interesting feedback from the corporate supporter, and I'm more than happy to share that with you guys on the internal global list. But effectively, we're getting comments from people who are our supporters, and I think it's relatively obvious to all of us that we need to do a better job. Avi?
Just to clarify, is this just about how we present them on
Nope.
the website and discoverability, or is it also about the projects themselves?
The projects themselves, we need to really we need to have better journeys. We need to basically say, I'm a developer. This is the security pathway. These are the projects that are most relevant to you. I am a CISO, yada, yada, yada.
I guess I'm still confused.
Hmm.
What you're describing is what my understanding of the website redesign was going to accomplish.
Yeah,
Like
but
that's
then
all part of a website redesign.
Yeah, but we've got a CISO handbook from 2014. I'd love to get
No,
more
I-
volunteers on
I
it.
understand that we have projects that are basically dead and we have no way to deal with that. I've dealt with that in the projects committee. But I guess my question still stands. I don't understand what you're asking because the idea of redeveloping the website to give better journeys, to give better focus on projects, that's been addressed. We're moving for I thought we were moving forward with that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
trying to
that's-
argue it. I just feel like I'm missing what the question is.
What I'd like to do is let's get the website redesign underway. That will really help. And then when we come to do our strategic board call, like our in-person board thing next year, let's figure out what our gaps are with our projects. Give ourselves time to do the homework, to work out what the gaps are. And then as a strategic item for the board is to invest in the projects that we have gaps.
So if I may, picking on what Kevin was saying, one part is the website presentation and findability. The other side, what you're saying now, is the projects themselves, of what the projects need to be doing better, or maybe removing some of the stuff that we started touching on a little bit at AppSec SF person.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Okay, more than a password day, we're going to be doing social media good law. We're also going to be having mandatory multi-factor authentication enabled on that day. So everybody who logs into their OWASP account will be required to sign up for multi-factor authentication. We've only got like 21% of the people who use our accounts with multi-factor authentication today. We'll be continuing to encourage people to get that done before the day. But I am actually working with LastPass and 1Password. I did reach out to Bitwarden, but they don't have any personal plans. So at the end of the day, I want to get some codes that give people discounts to password managers. We still have email problems. We are missing a lot of our essential emails. We know that certain people, in particular, like our lawyers, the EU VAT people and our HR folks, struggle to get messages to us. So what we're doing is we're setting up OWASPfoundation.org to move to Office 365 as an alternative. It's not an ideal situation, but until Microsoft untrains its AI to unblock us, they don't seem to be able to untrain their AI. And so our emails remain blocked and quarantined on the Microsoft's platform, which unfortunately, not everybody's on Gmail. Surprise. We're also looking for a better sales-oriented CRM. Kelly and I are going to kick off a search. The reality is Copper doesn't do a good job. It missed, like, it The graph that you see in the slides today is off by $70,000 compared to the end of September financials. A CRM should never be off by that much. Sam.
Just a quick question on the email problems,
Mm.
Andrew. Is the issue with OWASP.org or OWASP.com emails? Because I'm
It's-
receiving emails on the Microsoft Outlook address from OWASP.org regularly without any issues. I was wondering if is it OWASP.com issue specific?
It is, yes. And so we've identified some issues like with DocHub and QuickBooks that because we don't list them in our SPF records, we may not be able to get through certain spam filters. So we're trying to address that. But in particular, I can email the EU VAT people all day long and they'll never get my mail. So I end up using my personal email, which is unacceptable. Directors and attendance. This is before I just pass on. Bill and Kevin, you're right on the cusp. Please come to every remaining meeting. There's only realistically this meeting and 2 more. I'm not aware of any other special meetings. And special meetings that are virtual are no longer counted. So the reality is just come to the November and December board meetings and you'll be fine. And then it starts over again in 2025. The elections are open now. We're having a very, 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 very low voter turnout. I'm going to put up a Canva message on the OWASP.org website to encourage people to vote. But if you can encourage people to vote as well in your travels, I will be updating the slides for the chapter meetings. But the reality is it's already towards the end of the month, and I don't know how many people are holding chapter meetings between now and then. Dawn.
We're at 6%. Unfortunately, it's not as low as you think. It's kind of where we're at every year at this stage. It picks up a little, but we don't get a large amount, to begin with. So,
do you have a number of photos?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'll tell you right now. Okay, simply. Okay, so it was sent to 6,032, 364 people have voted. Unfortunately, that's not far off. And it goes up every time, like I sent out an email yesterday that once we get closer, I'll send more out. When it does, you get another 50 people, 75, did social media before the meeting. So. Any suggestions? We talked about this in San Francisco. So any suggestions? I'm willing.
Star?
Did you just mention the chapter slides that you had previously mentioned in San Francisco? They're not actually available quite yet. We had somebody asking about that.
Oh, okay. I'll get those done today. The reality is that we do need to update the fact that LostCon is about to go. So I'll update the slides to not include LostCon and anything previous. Sam.
And Andrew, can you please work with the chapter committee on this because it's kind of a committee's responsibility as well. And also one thing, obviously, I have an OWASP London chapter meetup on the 31st, which is after the elections. But one thing that we can do, and I will email the members of my chapter and ping them on social media, reminding everyone to vote in the elections.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sorry, I sent all of it posted on Slack and all the different groups, and I sent it to the leaders list besides.
Okay. I just want to go through the membership stuff. This is the problem that we've got. 339K. When Chris does her finance report, you'll see that September ended with 400K. So Copper is wrong. Dawn?
Me and Kelly went over this last night and some this morning. I got a list from Leah, which I'll be doing this afternoon, tomorrow morning, is we're going to compare QuickBooks to Copper to see. Because in the beginning of the year, we didn't have access to something. So maybe some things got missed. I'm not sure, but we're going to do a deep dive by tomorrow afternoon. We'll have answers.
Okay. Okay, so conference sponsors, that 1.74 million doesn't match up with the QuickBooks report either. So again, what we really need to do is figure out either a better process for closing wins, or alternatively, I really do think that Copper is probably not reporting some of the things that are noted as wins. It's frustrating. Chris, I'll just let you know. There's membership is down slightly when I took it. So there must have been a number of members who expired. But 5 out of 8,375 is not significant. However, we still need to look at the audit of the complementary members. So realistically, our real membership number is somewhere in between that lot and about 100, 150 of those. And with that, I will pass off to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I know you're very busy today. Yeah, Andrew, I did not realize you guys were looking at a new CRM. I know we've had some issues with invoicing through the CRM and over-reporting, over-recording potential payments due to the difference between quotes and invoicing. So I'm happy to meet with you and give you some insight and suggestions on other CRMs that we've had experience with that might fit your organization better. So
Okay. I've also got advice from Matt Tesoro, who uses a different sales CRM. And yeah, we're looking at Monday CRM and we're looking at HubSpot.
very
If you've got
good.
other suggestions, please let us know.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna jump in and share my screen real quick. And it sounds like you guys are very busy today. So please let me know if you have any questions. And I'll try to make this as brief as possible. So we are going to be reviewing the management report for September. And my screen has frozen.
I see it moving.
Yeah, it's starting to. What's wrong? We'll jump into the balance sheet. And again, I'm going to go over this pretty quickly today. There has not been any significant changes in the balance sheet. Cash did decrease by $150,000 in the month of September. But that is offset by a decrease in liabilities. Accounts payable, you can see, was $267,000 in August, and it fell to $45,000 in September. So that is the largest driver for the decrease in cash for the month. Total net assets increased by approximately $113,000 in the month of September, and our CD balance remains the same at $500,000. I will say, and we'll discuss this a little bit more when we get to the cash flow forecast, that we do have almost $400,000 in funds held by Eventbrite that I'm anticipating be transferred this month, hopefully. And we also have approximately $500,000 held in PayPal that I would suggest that we transfer as well into the cash accounts. Statement of activity, we'll go over this with the budget as we usually do, but for the month of September, we have $301,000 in revenue, which is down from the previous month, obviously due to conference income. And total expenses for the month are down significantly as well. $188,000 in expenses versus $419,000 during the month of August. So we'll go ahead and just look at the statement of activity again compared to the budget. Obviously, we are way over delivering on revenue this year. Really working towards having a much more accurate projection next year. But conference income is the biggest driver, up by almost $1.3 million over budgeted expectations. The only downfall on the conference side is training. We are under budget for training related income.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes.
Remind me what the color coding is again, please.
So green means good and red means bad. So when we're looking at the revenue on the top side of the report, if we are over in revenue, that's a good thing. And the red means we are under anticipated in revenue. And then when we get to expenses, it's the opposite. Obviously, if we are under expenses, that's a good thing.
Okay, because I saw some items in that were green and were negative, and I'm like, okay, thanks. That clears it
Right.
up.
Income versus expenses, yep. So from an income standpoint, we are exceeding expectations on general donations and on corporate supporters. And I know we had been a little bit more ahead in membership earlier in the year, but it seems like that has caught up with itself. We're only $23,000 over anticipated membership revenue at this point. From the expense standpoint, all the overages are where we expect them to be. Community outreach, which is significant, which is consistent with the way it's been all year. Conference expenses, we are approximately $66,000 under estimate. But we are still getting expenses in for San Francisco. General operating expenses over by $34,000 and significant payroll savings of $104,000. And again, project expenses are still running significantly over. Total expenses though, as a whole, and again, it's largely the project expenses offset by the payroll savings. We are only $11,000 over budget for the year. So considering our revenue overages, that's more than acceptable, I would believe. And that's it. If you don't have any questions on the financials, I did just want to touch base a little bit. We are currently under audit. I sent a follow-up with the auditors yesterday. And I have not heard back from them yet to see where we stand, see if they have any questions or any more outstanding items. And also to confirm that the 990 will be done and ready to be filed by November 15th. So waiting to hear back from them on that. I do expect that after this audit, I would suggest, and depending on what the auditors say about it, that we remove the affiliate cash balance from the balance sheet moving forward, since we're pretty unsure of, I'd like to kind of just get that off of our books moving forward.
Yeah.
But
I
we'll see
think
how
that-
we'll see how that comes out in the audit.
Yeah.
Sam has a
Sam?
question.
Yes.
Chris, I have a question for you on the financials.
Mhm.
When you were going over accounts receivable, there was a significant difference between September and October. Why is that? Is that because of the payment for the San Francisco venue?
The accounts payable, yes, there were significant payments made out for the San Francisco event during the month of September. It's expenses that were recorded in August but paid in September.
Okay, and the second question is about PayPal payments. Those are quite a high figure on PayPal payments.
Yes.
Someone clarify what these are for and why we're using PayPal and what for?
Leah, can you speak to what comes in through that PayPal? But that's just one of the ways that we receive funds.
Yeah,
And
that's corporate supporters. It's just a different way that we're receiving some of the revenue for events or just memberships or whatever. But PayPal doesn't pay out until, just like Eventbrite, until the event is over.
Okay, got it. Because we're supposed to use Stripe and Bill.com. So if there's still some legacy payments, basically, that's what they're saying. Still arriving via PayPal. Thank you. That's it from me.
so we use Bill.com for paying out vendors, but when we receive funds, it's coming a lot through Eventbrite and PayPal
And Stripe.
and Stripe. Stripe is hitting the bank on a regular basis, though, where Eventbrite and PayPal are kind of holding those large balances.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I forgot I didn't show you guys the cash flow forecast, so I'm gonna share my screen. one more time.
The accounts receivable was obviously large because of the income received from corporate supporters. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that the accounts receivable is always large just after a conference.
Thanks, Andrew. It's just been was a massive difference between September and October.
Yep.
Just to be clear, we're talking about accounts receivable or accounts payable? I think we're
Accounts
talking-
receivable was like 465 or something.
Yes. And
Yeah, and payable was also a difference as well.
yes,
Payable was the difference between like 25 grand and 250,000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So the CDs are rolling over. One of them is rolling over today, and two of them roll over on Thursday.
Just looking at our cash flow forecast, again, we're only for the remainder of the year because we're working on the current budget. I'm gonna give you an update on that in just a moment. I just want to point out, we're still in a strong cash position with $1.5 million at the end of the year. That does assume that we're gonna be receiving those funds from Eventbrite this month. If we also move the funds from PayPal into cash, we would probably, we don't want to do anything until we have the budget ready for next year, but I would assume that we're gonna have another $500,000 to invest in the coming months
Mm-hmm.
into the CDs once we receive all those funds.
Okay, I can do that. The other thing is I am transferring the funds in savings to the money market. It's just I'm limited to $100,000 a day. So if there's a minimum amount of savings that we need to retain in Chase, let me know so I don't transfer too much. I need to have at least 250 in the money market account.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, typically the money in the money market account is accessible within 24 hours, so you can usually do transfers pretty quickly. But I would suggest leaving at least 30 days in the Chase account.
Yep.
I can figure out those numbers for you.
Thank you. I really would appreciate that.
So yeah, unfortunately did not get an update from the auditors, but just really want to make sure that our 990 is filed on time. And I think next step on the budgeting process is waiting for confirmation from Andrew's team on when they are all available so we can schedule the next budget meeting. And we can finally put a tool together, and again, really looking at the timing of revenue and making sure that we capture all significant income sources and events, global events, local events, in the next year to make sure that we can have a better forecast on what to anticipate.
We're all available on the 6th of November at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. my time.
Okay, Leah, can you coordinate? Oh, nope. Star?
Oh,
It's done.
projects.
I'll be in the
Okay.
summit. Sorry.
Just to let you know, Chris, I spoke to Leah just right before the meeting. I should have by tomorrow the list of all the locations for the events and the month. So you know what, you can just, whatever you do with the budgets, when expenses. So I'll have that by tomorrow.
Awesome. And I know Dawn and Leah have been working very hard to categorize all the expenses and revenues for this year to the correct location, and really doing a lot of work on tracking that to give us good projections for next year. So really appreciate all the effort that you've put on that, Dawn, put into that.
Thank you. Yeah, I met with Leah. She showed me how to do something else. So those reports, the uncategorized for the first, 9 months, we'll get tomorrow.
Yeah, and so we can touch base after this. We don't need to take up this time to schedule the meeting, but you can just coordinate with Leah. She has my schedule, and we'll schedule the next budget meeting. The only thing I kind of wanted to put on you guys is y'all's radar for moving forward is, I don't know if you have any plans. Obviously, we've had a very strong year. We're going to end in a strong cash position. I don't know if you have any plans in the short term for new programs or for the additional cash that we have on hand this year. If you don't have anything for in the next 2 to 3 years, that you have a plan for spending down the cash increases that we've seen this year, you might want to start thinking about long-term investments instead of the CDs.
Right. Okay.
So that's just something to keep in mind. If you plan on implementing new programs and have a plan for spending down that cash in the next several years, or the next few years, you want to keep it in short-term investments, but you guys are getting enough cash on hand that you really might want to start thinking about a long-term investment or even creating an endowment for the future.
Mhm. Okay. Board, do think about it. We sort of need to sort out the budget really, really quickly. Chris, I'm thinking about hiring one additional person, and that will be going on the events team. I'll talk to you more when we actually meet up for about the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking forward to moving that process forward and hopefully having it finalized in December. Is there any other questions regarding the financials?
Okay. Thank you, Chris and Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Avi, your floor.
Thank you. Next item is to read into the minutes the e-vote and special meeting, which is really good that we did this because apparently I missed when we actually hit the actual vote. I think there was discussion and the vote hit over the holidays, so I missed that. Anyway, the motion did pass. The motion reads as follows: resolved upon successful finalization of the agreement between OWASP and the Barcelona Convention Center for OWASP APSIC EU 2025. The board authorizes the treasurer and the executive director to review the final contract and, if agreed, co-sign the agreement to a maximum value of 200,000 euros. Bill sponsored. I seconded it. It passed with 6-0. I missed that vote. Unofficially, for the record, I do support it. Got that recorded.
If I may ask real quick on that one. I think we should change the wording of no vote to didn't vote or abstained or something like that, because no vote implies, I mean, I read that 3 times as you voted no, and I knew that wasn't right because it made no sense that you would second it and then say no.
Okay.
A dumb comment, but I thought about it when I read the thing.
For the record, there is a difference between not voting and abstain.
Yeah, of course. I just don't know which one officially you did.
I can change it to no vote recorded. Would that be okay?
I would say vote not recorded. Just
Vote,
and the
yeah.
only reason is because if he had actually voted no, we would just write the word no there, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll change it to no vote not recorded. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
No problems. Star, update on the AMS.
Christian's done a lot of the refactoring on the front end to make kind of the things that we're retaining behind the scenes still work. Like, and there's various connections, but we are still on track for October, end of the month. And then please read the slides.
Oh, those slides for this?
There were slides just around the anticipated what we're doing in Q4 and how I've parsed it out
Okay, where am I looking?
under project. Oh, there you go.
Okay,
So
so
there's more detail if you want to see it. Plus, I'm keeping track in Monday.
okay, good. So do review
And
the
it is
slides.
worth noting. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andrea. I was just going to mention that there is a fully built CRM. Blue Up was built off of the foundation of being a CRM, and at its core, it is a CRM. So sales pipelines, integration into QuickBooks. It's got all the things that we need to keep our tech sprawl from getting more sprawly instead of less.
Okay, something to think about. We'll put it into the mix.
Star, have you given a thought, or I assume you gave thought to the rollout plan, how to socialize this with the leaders and other relevant members?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's going to be fairly seamless other than upgrades. So we're going to handle that through training. Honestly, my head is so focused on trying to get it online that I could use some support in socializing it. So if you have ideas, I'd welcome them. But other than that, it would just be a Slack communication.
I would suggest.
Sorry,
go
ahead. No, I welcome the feedback.
I was going to say to both Slack and to the leaders list, Right now, a lot of the leaders have heard that there is this thing called AMS, and most of them have no clue what it is.
Sure.
A lot of potential leaders have been trying to open chapters, have been told nothing until AMS and have no clue what that is. So I would suggest even now kind of starting to say, prepare yourself emotionally. There's going to be this thing and what is
Okay.
it?
Okay.
Is that fair?
I
Does that
think
make
I
sense?
might skip the prepare yourself emotionally, but other than that, it made perfect sense.
And then when it's actually live, then you can, come in with more detail, but not hit
Absolutely.
them all of a sudden like you guys are already live here type of thing.
Okay. That's fair.
Thank you.
Okay.
Star, in terms of actually getting it socialized, right? You mentioned training. Are you planning to run a training course for all the leaders and maybe have it
Ye-
recorded and published as a video?
Honestly, Sam, my plan was to come back around and ask for you to help me put together a video like the one you did previously, but
Happy
in
to
the new
help.
blended format. So that was my whole game plan.
I volunteer.
I second that.
I mean, we do have a chapters committee that can help with that a bit.
Okay.
Any other further questions on the AMS?
We're close. We're close. We're going to get there. Okay. So, Dawn, new chapters and reactivation.
On hold until the AMS, until I'm trained on it, because I have no idea what it's going to look like. So I can't do anything.
Okay. So, soon is probably the way we need to go about saying that.
Dawn, do you have any indication of how many chapters are waiting to be created?
Under 15, I would say 10, because a lot of them, it's kind of funny. There's a whole description on the link to why it's not open. So people just submit it 5 times in other tickets, like grant ticket, event ticket. So they're, it's all written there that it'll be active. And so I'd say it's 10, around 10, if that, not that much. Don't know if they'll all be approved, kind of deal, but it's not like 50.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
That brings us to the website redesign. Andrew?
Okay, so we've had various quotes on redesigning the website. We've had the very comprehensive one from the Polish team. That was well out of our budget, but they presented a great deal of really, really good ideas. We also had a reasonably priced redesign, but the implementation of it was problematic because they would be hosting it under a Python-based Django platform or something like that. And realistically, it seems like the CMS would be something that the staff could actually manage. That's not a problem. It's just that we would be locked into this platform again. So what I was really thinking of is that maybe we put a design brief together and go out and actually ask for something that not only is open source, but also we would host somehow rather than rely upon a third party. Still running it through Cloudflare. At the end of the day, a lot of the assets are static, but our website design is very plain Jane. A lot of the information is very difficult. Like if you go to OWASP.org today, the first thing you see is a calendar and then some very large, projects that you might want to do, but it's not really a landing page per se. And then there's articles, and then there's our sponsors. This could all be done a lot easier, I think. And to a great degree, things like global board EU and governance should probably be a single landing page for itself and things like that. So we need to go through and decide what it is that we would like to get done in the first page. I think, honestly, the front landing page of the OWASP website, events and projects, and to a certain degree, some of the stuff about us needs to be part of the a redesign. Chapters and would probably stay the same for the time being. A lot of the membership stuff goes to GlueUp. So, you know, some of that stuff that we have today, like the membership portal, goes away and is replaced by a much better looking AMS for the membership stuff. So what I'd probably suggest is put together, looking back at both the proposal that we had from Van Noppen and the proposal that we had from the Polish team, put together something that actually makes sense for us and see about getting a multi-stage project together. We might need to do things in multiple stages just simply to be able to afford it. And realistically, you know, dedicate ourselves to a particular platform for whatever the reasons may be. But, you know, the fact that it takes our events team, like if we go to events and look at, for example, Benelux Day, that's not the right one. Hang on. These websites take our team something in the order of, like, Lauren, how long does it take you to actually put one of these sites together once you've got the assets from Hugo?
Days.
It should take us days, and it looks awful. And the actual call to action, which is register, takes you to Eventbrite. And that looks totally different. It's just a really poor customer experience. So yeah, we definitely need to think about our events experience because it's one of the major ways we earn money. We need to improve our corporate supporter experience. That's another way we earn money. And our membership experience is changing for the better with the AMS. So how do we integrate all of these things? And then what do we do with projects? What do we do with chapters as time goes on? I think chapters will probably end up being on the AMS. And so a lot of that, the chapter discussion will probably go away once the AMS is in place. But yeah, so what I'd suggest is by the end of November, because I do need to be, I've got to be realistic about the amount of time I've got in December. We put together a brief and we start to shop it around web design firms, stating that we really need a CMS that is open source, that we can run, that we can manage, that our staff has the ability to do reasonable updates and look like an OWASP website. Harvey.
Andrew, I want to point out that I think it's really important when we shop that proposal around, we're treating this as separate things, the design and the implementation and hosting, to not lump that all together. I think that was our mistake with Van Noppen. We got one proposal to do all those things, and that kind of just conflated the stuff, and you don't get the best design separate from the implementation and the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, there might be pieces that we could split off. For example, an events platform. Star says that be supported by AMS. That's great, but if not, I mean, that should be its own platform. Look at any series of events. Look at Black Hat and DC. They have an events platform.
Yeah, we've actually met with them. That's called Swapcard. Swapcard is a big, hairy piece of software, and it's got a big, hairy piece of pricing. We would actually probably, if we're going down that events, like integrated events platform, we would definitely need to reevaluate what we're doing. But also knowing that we need to have platforms for Spain and other places that can deal with the EU VAT in such a way that we don't have to. So yeah, we need to do a bit of a search for an events platform, I think.
So Star says that GlueUp supports that. Sounds great, but still needs to be designed. So
I might also just offer in general, the AMS was very purpose chosen for not creating more text sprawl in terms of what it can do and the ease in which you can do it within it. So the choice that I preferred was ugly, frankly, and very easy to design from and work with. But that was not the choice that was made again because of how much better it was improved with the GlueUp choice. So Lauren's been through the events module and was actually very excited for what it can do for her versus the way we're current doing things. So even if you ultimately decide you have to scale up, at least pause and consider the AMS.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'll touch base with you with the Polish redesign. It was out of our budget. Out
So
of our
what's the
range.
next step on the website? I mean, we've been talking about this for a really long time.
Mhm.
What's the next step?
It's to get a brief together and actually work out what is the scope of works that we're trying to do. I think Avi's right. We need a design that will work with a particular platform that we've chosen. The reality is that if we end up leaving it to individual design houses or whatever as to what they're prepared to work with, we might get locked into something that, like for example, with Van Noppen, they have a whole bunch of proprietary extensions on top of an open source CRM, sorry, a CMS, and that could end up basically locking us into their platform with them doing all the updates and everything forevermore. We have a lot of pages and a lot of content, and we need to simplify the actual navigation of that process down.
Two things. One, do we have documented personas that we want to target with the website, so that they actually have a good idea of what that user journey is going to be, instead of recreating the wheel?
I think
So-
Mark Curfey had that, right? In the
Yes, he had.
Policy Proposal Andrea.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have that. We need to give that to, design houses, so that they actually know what we're trying to target and why.
Yeah. Yeah.
My second point, we have a lot of pages. The overwhelming majority of them are community, and a lot of them are just utter crap.
Yes.
We should seriously consider a website as the product. OWASP is a product, and we are in the business of selling no more insecure software. And the website needs to focus solely on that. And all those community things, those are nice, but they're supplementary.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, we should be able to separate this off. Our main website should be no more than 20 or so pages, not 20,000, 20 or so pages. Because if you're trying to sell something, you need to get right to the point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're visiting OWASP.org for the first time, why the hell should I care? I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have to dig through 20,000 pages to figure that out. Likewise, we should have a supplementary redesign of the current site that could be simply rebranded as community.owasp.org. Just an idea. The content is valuable, it's user generated, it is supplemental to the product in which we are selling.
Mm-hmm.
We need to seriously think about this. One, that would dramatically reduce the cost of what it is that we're trying to do. And two, it would keep focus on what it is that we're actually trying to achieve with the website.
Yeah. So you're talking about these pages, the community pages?
Yeah, I'm talking about basically all the projects, all the
Mhm.
chapter pages, all that is community stuff.
Yeah.
All of the ancillary, I mean, there's so many different things on here. If you do a search,
Yeah.
the search is not even usable.
No, it's not. I totally agree with that.
So why even have it at one point, My point is that if the website is representing the product in which we're trying to sell, no more insecure software, the website basically needs to focus on that mission and that mission alone, and everything else is supplementary. We should have instead of like a wiki.owasp.org OWASP.org, we should have a community.OWASP.org. It will,
Yeah.
one, it will actually amplify the ability that we actually do have community-driven pages. And simultaneously not take us away from our sole focus of trying to sell what it is that we're trying to sell. It would dramatically reduce cost, and we could get a redesigned template for this.
Hmm.
I would love to get all this crap out of GitHub. Because if you want to talk about user experience, I mean, you can't even navigate our GitHub organization currently.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was a
totally
horrible
agree.
design decision. We need to reverse that.
Yeah.
And we
Uh,
could get a redesigned community thing that would then apply to all the pages.
Yeah.
I don't think
It's
it would
a,
be overly difficult.
it's
I
a
really
Jekyll
don't.
theme. It's not hard.
If I may, Steve, it sounds like you're talking about this one big website is actually multiple different websites all smushed together because it's
I think
community
so.
It is.
events and also other stuff.
Exactly. And you know, you're going to have a community, you're going to have the main website, you're going to have the main thing, 20 or so pages, whatever it is. You're going to have the community site with a lot of the community content. You'll have the events site, and everything should be seamless, right? Everything should have a seamless user experience, even though technically they might be on different hosts.
Yeah, I mean, the projects side, right? Video side. Steve, yeah, I totally agree with that. So
Exactly.
I think all the ping there. So we already started using subdomains which weren't in use before, right? But yeah, I think some of the microsites already started to appear,
Mhm.
including top 10, for example. OWASP top 10 has a microsite as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The
and then
top
we
10
can
Combination of
microsites. Yeah, sorry. The top 10 microsites actually existed since 2017, so it's not like it's new.
And it seems like subdomain usage by projects is becoming very, very favorable. And it's just a way for them to have their look, their feel, the thing they're putting on the microsite actually on the subdomain so that it is all tied together through a very normal way to get to it. So
Steve, I want to say I agree 100% with about 80% of what you said. With actually, you know what, I've talked about that a lot, about separating the community open source aspect of the projects from here are products you can use. And I absolutely agree with that, except for one thing, is that the community in some ways is also a product. And I think we should treat it that way as well. Other than that,
It should be. And that's why I said you have the opportunity on the main website to highlight the fact that we have a community instead of dumping, you know, a first-time visitor on this community site that is absent of zero kind of polish or anything. Dump them onto, you know, a really polished, really well designed and thought out experience. And part of that experience is in fact the community. And from a design perspective, just tie in the design elements. That it's not going to be overly difficult. And when we do that, we might also revisit the fact that we might want to pull a lot of these www dash whatever, kind of redesign that at the same time and pull all that crap out of GitHub, because that's just a nightmare.
Yeah. So there is a singular theme called site theme, the www site theme, that actually hosts the Jekyll theme for OWASP.org. And you update that, it updates them all.
Yep.
Okay. So it sounds like
So
we got a bit of a
yeah. So instead, you know, from a proposal perspective, if we can give them the user personas and the journeys that we kind of envision, and maybe a rough idea of the 20, 25, whatever it is, pages that we believe that we would want, that will allow us to get a pretty accurate quote on whatever it is services that we're after, whether it's design, implementation, whatever.
so here's where I disagree with you, Steve, because a really good designer, and I think we're talking, you know, top level designers, because this is not a trivial challenge. A really good designer would be able to figure that out. That's part of the task, to figure out how to do that, given our context, given our complicated story that we have here. figure out how to trim that down and focus that. And not necessarily prescribe, well, here are the pages, just go ahead and give us the visual design. Part of the website design is what we want to give, how we want to serve it up.
Yeah, some of those pages are unfortunately buried. So from the outside looking in, if you don't know all these different projects and all that sort of thing, you're actually not going to know what things we actually want to highlight. You know, you're not going to know, for example, oh, well, they only want the flagship projects on the main website versus maybe something else. Right? We need to give them that context.
Yes, but that's part of the exploration, because I don't think, in my mind, I don't think we just want a visual design. It's not
No.
just a visual design. It's tailoring, building out which pieces of the website we actually need. This is not a visual designer we're looking for, but rather an experienced designer.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yep. Completely agree with that.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the website redesign? Questions or comments?
I think my main question is basically to make sure that it is we as a board we have visibility of changes as well, because I think over the past year, the front page, the landing page of OWASP.org changed several times. We quote a couple of times that it was not updated. For example, there was no information on Lisbon conference. It was still promoting DC when we had Lisbon, and we didn't have San Francisco conference. Information about board voting is missing right now, for example, right? So we need to understand how it is maintained and whose responsibilities it maintained. Is it existing member of staff, or is it the new member of staff that Andrew is proposing to bring on board? These
The
are,
voting history is actually up to date.
yeah. So this
Oh,
is
I think Sam meant about that we are undergoing elections now. The board
Yeah.
voting.
yeah, the elections. Yeah. So at the moment that we'll look at this, and it's this isn't what the website looked like a year ago, right? A year ago there was information about projects, there was information about conferences, there's information about chapters, about projects, and now it looks different. And yeah, I'm not sure why this change was made, so it looks actually worse than it looked a
So
year
I'm-
ago, and even though it's the same thing. So something, yeah, it's
So some of the last changes to the website were made by Harold as he was leaving.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually ask for those changes, but the reality is that those changes happened. I think he was trying to get this to look like something the Polish suggestion, but there's only so much you can do with Jekyll. I think realistically, this platform is not built for web UX.
Disagree about that point. But more to the point, I don't think the board needs to be involved with every change to the website, but rather the process around changes to content, I think is what you're referring to.
yes, and I think more strategically is that what should be there, right? Again, something what the Steve has launched, right? So what we need to do is a community, is it projects, right? Is it documentation? Is it also how to get in touch, right? Again, I repeat, we have issues with people, including government, trying to figure out how to use our website to contact us, right? And well, I challenge you to find a way how they can do it on the website, because there isn't a way. So yeah, it's what should be there, and yeah, I think something to continue discussion. Obviously, we do have the proposal, and we need a designer. So basically, Andrew said it right. So it was done by Harold and not by a professional web designer, and it should be a professional web designer. And I mean, I agree with you that professional web designer can actually theme a Jekyll site very nicely. I have seen Jekyll design websites based on GitHub, which look very, very nice. Right? It's
The problem is not the design on Jekyll. The problem is Jekyll. We have people who break our website for days at a time because they put a space where a tab is belonging and put like literally it is so incredibly fussy that if you don't get it right, and we don't have any place to do the testing, like it's not built for web design. It is literally built for people who are highly technical, and those people generally don't have very good UX skills.
That's not a Jekyll problem though.
If it takes Lauren 5 days to put up a website that, you know, that could have been done in half a day if we had the assets in place. That's 4.5 days that I just don't have. The reality is that Jekyll is incredibly hard for non-technical users to actually create a good looking website.
Yeah.
Don't disagree about that. It is fussy.
Yeah, may I suggest we move on to other topics. I know we're like 9 minutes over the next hour, so we seem to be
Yeah.
running short on time.
Sure.
Great discussion though.
Thank you, Ricardo. I just want to wrap up with one question. Sam, do you want to work with Andrew on putting together that brief, the design brief for the website?
Yeah, happy to do it.
Okay.
And
when we have that brief, I'll be happy to
Steve,
share.
maybe I'm not sure if Steve want to get involved in this, because Steve has some great ideas and actually experience with Cyclone DX.
Okay. So the next item is the discussion on the budget 2025, which we did hear from Leah and Chris. If you do have programs that you'd like to have funded, are there any specific programs that you would like to do? One of the things that I'd like to do is we have a great unfunded hole that's project summit sized. And one of the things that we're doing this time around is I'm hiring an events coordinator to actually look at the way that the things run and provide suggestions on improving the actual project summit. But there are things that we do with the project summit. Its financial model is unsustainable. It costs us about $130,000 to put on, and we don't get much in the way of sponsorships. We don't charge for registrations. This is historically because of the way that the project summits have been previously run. But maybe the board wants to do an investment in the project summit worth that much. So that's the sort of thing that we want from the board. Do we need to decide on every program you want to do today? But I honestly think we need to come up with a better funding model for the project summit. Steve, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't believe those figures, especially for something that is local basically to London. So that's really interesting. And you know, I know a lot of the projects that I'm part of, we've never actually participated in that. Just because of travel.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. No, I
So
was shaking
we'll-
my head because I couldn't believe the numbers that you were throwing out. I believe you. I'm just, wow.
Yeah, so the problem is that there was never a 2024 budget requisition for the project summit, and when it was split out into its own P&L, there's this hole. Now we did discover a double accountants, like a double entry for the project summit, so it was not as bad as it was, but it's still going to be about 130,000. Now, at the end of the day, basically, we have picked up a couple of sponsors and things, but we're also doing things like travel assistance and whatnot for projects. Now, that's just one example of a program that you may want to invest in. There might be others. Sam, I know that you've been talking about swag for a long time. We have underinvested in swag for years, and maybe it's worthwhile thinking about the sort of swag that we're prepared to have, or have a budget for swags, because things like stickers and whatnot are very cheap for local production, very expensive for us to buy and then ship. That goes for almost all swag. So maybe we need to think about, if we bump up the swag budget, how do we use it properly? Now, operationally, I'd prefer it if it was bought locally and we just have a bit of a budget and some guidelines that we put together on the consumption of swag.
We need to seriously talk about swag because it's right now it's a mess. I can't do anything, Andrew. I actually gave up on swag. We designed a bunch of shirts and stickers and all kinds of stuff, and we actually just wanted the accounting just set up. We were told we couldn't, and we had to use the existing OWASP swag store, except that nobody could figure out how to give us access, and we would have to redesign all of our products again. So we don't have any swag.
Yeah, Star.
And that was 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Hmm.
So there have been several things to come out of kind of community feedback about just the lack of swag and the desire to have it more present at events and at like meeting the globals or but basically I've started conversations in this space and I just wanted to understand how to better participate in this conversation with Andrew, the board. I wasn't expecting this item today, but I have a lot of stuff in this area that's kind of in the works to talk about. Nothing's decided.
Yeah. Dawn.
I'm the one who handles swag. We don't give swag out for chapter meetings. We do stickers and pens because we stopped doing apparel. It cost us too much money. So we don't give shirt, because basically we're not giving people shirts just for coming to a chapter meeting. As some people have gotten, I don't know, Bill has gotten, I know for sure, we do conference in a box. Anyone who puts in a ticket, like you're doing a co-marking or your project's going to be somewhere, I literally send you a tablecloth and a whole box of swag. And then I also let you budget locally for a pull-up banner, and which gets paid by community outreach. So there, unfortunately, right now I have 40 flashlights left. That's it, and pens. I'm waiting for someone to, Andrew, give me a budget to restock. But I've been giving out swag for all the events. If they submit a ticket, Bill, what the swag you get, because since I know I've sent you for co-marketing, is suitable for your event, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Steve, just reach out. I just need to get restocked with Andrew, give me the budget. They're going over that, but I haven't gotten anything. I have not turned down any co-marketing, anything this year to send out swag.
Yeah, the
Okay.
last time I was talking about swag was with that was a couple years ago.
Oh,
Nobody
okay,
could
all right.
nobody could figure out how to give me access, and it yeah.
Yeah, just let me know what you need, and if you're going, the project's going, so I'll send it, because I want it,
Yeah.
Oh,
I
we
just
first have
gotta
to
get-
design it. I mean, our store no longer exists, right? Because we were told we can't use it. We have to use the OWASP store, which is fine. But then the OWASP store, nobody could give me access to it. So it's like chicken and egg.
Yeah, no, I see, you want to design just with your project on it, not necessarily the OWASP name?
Correct. Yeah, every
Okay.
project should have their own, which, basically projects today, most of them have to go to their own swag stores to do this, which is what we were doing.
Okay. Let me know what you need, and I'll figure it out and make sure stuff gets into the budget for that kind of thing.
But yeah, swag's important. The marketing, the website, you have the word potentially. We need to do this website next year.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be a thing.
Yep, I agree with that.
This is not optional.
Mm-hmm.
Not in my mind. I'm not going to vote for anything that's optional. The certifications, definitely we need to invest in that, in my opinion. Absolutely. So
Okay.
I'll get off the soapbox.
No problems.
Oh, you're fine, Steve.
If I may, I want to be more specific about what you're saying, and not just leave it open. The website, I would like to have a design. I would like to have the design being worked on in Q1.
Mhm.
It's going to take a while because it's non-trivial. I would like them to get started in Q1, so that Q2, Q3 we can work on the implementation. So that I don't want this postponed long term. Is everyone in agreement on this? That we need to be investing on that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I don't think we should be taking the cheapest designer, but the one that knows that this is not a visual job.
This
Yeah.
is an investment.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's an investment, and really I would like them to look at all our social media sites as well, right? It all should be coordinated and
Mhm.
look proper.
And if it comes down to budget, Project Summit versus website, there's only one choice that I would have actually make.
Mhm.
Website is absolutely long term. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Um,
next thing you said was the Project Summit, right? You already mentioned that. So I have two questions here. One, Star, you said that next year you could make this self-sustaining. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think with sponsorship, I don't think it's a hard ask to get fully funded. And whether that is just sponsorship or a bigger program with like a conference like experience with speakers and day passes and stuff like that. So it just depends on what we want to do. There's options, but I have no reason to think that creating income to match what we spend is at all hard.
Yeah, it can even
For
be
the summit.
profitable, right? Because it's an event. It's no
It can be a
different from a
fundraiser for
conference.
sure.
I
You got it.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
disagree.
It just depends.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
Scott.
ahead. No, you go.
I was saying I disagree that it is an event. It should be run as project work and not as speakers and booths and whatnot.
Correct. Correct. I hear that. And what I would ask for is a more low-key sponsorship. So it's not, I don't want a trade show. It's not a trade show and it can't have that element there. But if a sponsor has a topic that's reasonable for the group, or if they want to support us by bringing their people, we could talk all day about options. So
Yeah.
it's just a
And
matter
also-
of what we want to do. But the most important thing, and I do agree with your point, that this is heads down work time for projects to actually come together as a team. So it can't detract from that.
And the sponsorships shouldn't be just for that event because it's not an event, but it's sponsorships of the projects, right?
Sometimes that's how we worked with them this year, was as a project-based sponsor, and it was as an attendee sponsor to help offset some of the travel costs.
Travel.
But
So what's the biggest expense for the Project Summit?
the venue,
The venue itself.
it is a decision that was locked in prior to me coming here. But one of the things that I'm hoping to get from attendees is, we have an impression of, is this the right area? Is this the right venue? And really, what do you need to accomplish your face-to-face project work the best? And is this our most economical means of getting there? Because I don't think that answer is gonna, I don't know, but it's got some unique elements that kind of make it a logical choice. So I don't want to just assume. I think I'll learn this year and come back with more information.
Mhm.
So Star, that leads to the second issue, right? This is project work, right? They're working on the project, they're producing something.
Correct.
To my mind, this is absolutely mission. This is
It
what we
is.
should spend on. And if it came down to spending 100,000 on this without any sponsorships at all, I would definitely vote for that because
Yeah.
this is how we produce the projects, right?
Yep.
You-
Completely. But I still think we can make money and get it covered so that we can spend that money elsewhere, or maybe invite more, or do, like, there's so much more you can do with more.
Sure. I mean,
But
it's
thank
great
you for your support.
to have people sponsor, cover the cost of doing the work on the projects. That's absolutely the engagement model we should have. But I would also be okay spending on this to make it
Thank
bigger, to
Yeah.
have more output.
And Avi, there are ways to actually get money from sponsors without turning it into a trade show. So, for example, we can have a sponsor which will pay for the venue, and then we can have a sponsor which will pay for the lunches, right? Right, but without having a booth, right? Saying lunch is sponsored by sponsor ABC, right? And the venue is sponsored by a different venue. That's all that I need to say, right? And similarly, for example, I still have lanyards, we still have T-shirts, we still have bags, right? OWASP Project Summit bag, right? Someone wants to put their logo on it.
My suggestion would be when selling these sponsorship packages to less focus on the in-person experience, and they'd be more interested in the marketing value of supporting a specific project.
That's specifically the model I went to after like the third rejection from Fastly. Unfortunately, we had a person change. She's now, the good news is she's now with AWS, so that relationship will hold well for us. But with Fastly, it was about, okay, well, I'm trying to bring more developers to maintain open source. I'm trying to bring more and talking about the open source story and why this work is so important, rather than just give me your money to sell your wares. It was never that. It was truly be our partner in open source. And then let's make some joint blog posts. Let's take this out and tell how Fastly supports OWASP by doing blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of co-marketing that comes out of that. That is of great value. But once you start saying open source, that's the real key. That I think we all know this, but we need to really hit that phrasing hard as we seek more from industry, because it makes it click for them.
Mhm.
Like, just to be clear, the logo is less about putting it on the summit site and more on the project site. Just as a small example.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's about both for sure.
Okay.
They got the JIT got ASVS uplifts as well as the project website, or I'm sorry, the level within their program for funding. They increased their level as well as maintained it on our site.
Fantastic.
Mhm. Okay. So it sounds like the website, Project Summit, and Swag are all investment changes. Bill, is Bill still on?
Certifications as well,
I
Andrea.
am,
Yep. Bill, can I have $10,000 for Swag for the rest of the year, please?
yes, you can have that.
Gonna
Okay.
need more, cause I'll get with you, it'll probably be higher, cause there are minimums you have to buy. So,
Oh,
yeah, you
but
can't,
Bill, I'll get a figure to you and we'll
Yeah.
do a co-approval.
yeah,
All right, sounds good.
okay. I'm being
Yeah.
realistic, sorry.
Okay.
The other
Uh,
item on the budget suggestion here was certification. I assume that's certification of secure development and certification of secure architecture. Sam, you were working on a proposal for that in the past. Do you want to re-up that, bring that forward?
Yeah, working on basically I presented it to the educational committee, so it is we were working with the educational committee on that. Right now, the committee had a few challenges that Andrew mentioned at the beginning of this call. So I think that there is now finally some movement. So we now have a project and a repo and a place where the committee can work on the proposal.
Do you think they can get a soft proposal to us before we close the budget so we have an idea if we're talking about 5, 6, 7 figures?
Yeah, financially, well, we
Order
can maybe
of
split it from the detailed proposal and yeah, in a ballpark figure. Ballpark figure can probably ask as a budget, while the detailed proposal probably will be ready by the end of the year.
mhm.
Fantastic. Does everybody, quick poll of the board members, does everybody agree that this is something that we should be investing in for the next year?
Yes.
Depending on details, obviously.
Yes.
Yes.
No worries. I'll put some money aside for it. Just Sam, if you can get me a figure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other items they think should be added to this discussion part of the next year's budget?
I did mention that I wanted to hire someone. I will talk with Bill because it's between Bill and my approval limit in terms of an additional EFT. This is to help Lauren run events so we can scale the events up. I think we've had previous agreement at San Francisco that this person should be hired. It's just simply, I'm meeting with the person tomorrow and I'll have a salary, so I'll discuss it with Bill. But that needs to go into the 25 budget as well.
Yeah, I just want to mention for the budget too, one other thing that comes up every year, and we've never addressed it, is that you end up having an outgoing board decide the budget for the incoming board. And the way to prevent that is by either shifting our fiscal year so that it's not the same as our election year, or we change the election cycle so that it's not, you know what I mean? They're together and we need to make them one halfway through the year. So I don't think that's a thing for this board to decide. We only have a few more months, but next year's board might want to address that in some way.
That's a good point.
I would strongly recommend that the board's election cycle is changed. It is actually really difficult for the staff to run elections at the same time as we've got the global AppSec on. It'd be really nice if the new boards could always come in at the beginning of July. It's halfway between one event and another event. And I know that means essentially half terms for some of the board members. And so you might want to consider an extension for them. But at the end of the day, basically moving our fiscal year, although it's possible, is not recommended by our accountants. That they definitely recommended strongly against that.
Yeah, it would be
Is that
horrible.
just codified in policy? Is that where that's codified, Andrew?
The fiscal year is actually just a default
the-
that we picked up, but the actual election cycle, there is an
Right.
elections policy that actually codifies the dates.
Okay.
It's just a matter of probably at the Q1 strategy meeting, let's bring it up and make sure it's on the agenda.
Yeah, the bylaws also mention the period of time. So if we're talking about shortening or lengthening one or two of the cycles.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to do this over the course of a few years, of a few election cycles. Lengthen it by 3 months each time for the next.
It's certainly some sort of discussion to be had at the strategy meeting for next year. I don't think we need to decide it today. It's just,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
I do agree with Bill that it would be best if the incoming boards had some say in the budget they're going to be given.
Especially because it does take a few months being on the board for the first time to have an idea of where things are falling. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
With that.
Absolutely.
To Star's point about program ideas from the staff that are not listed here, it is operational, but again, if you need budget for that, then it either goes up to Andrew or comes up to the board. So the real best way to do it is just to raise it.
Yeah. So start bring it up to me, and we do have a large budget envelope to work with this year. But at the end of the day, it does need to be aligned with the board's strategy. And I've got a copy of the board strategy as a diagram. We can go through and just make sure that it meets up with that strategy.
Excellent. Anything else need to be added to the budget? Any other thoughts, ideas, plans?
I'd rather see 3 things done well than 5 things done badly.
Disagree with that at all. Fantastic. All right, so moving on to the next topic, rechartering, right? Specifically around the various committees. Andrew, can I ask you to bring up the charters for some of the committees? I dropped you the link here to the committees page. The issue is this: the first few committees that we had, the charter is not written as charter for the most part. It's written as general thought, general ideas, and here's some things we want to do, as opposed to realizing that the charter is policy. Okay, the charter does need to specify what the scope of the committee. It needs to specify what needs to be done and how it will get done, and what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. So here, taking the around the chapters committee, but what do y'all know? The education committee. So it's
The
just-
chapter committee is as good as any.
Oh, yeah. You're jumping around. Right. So the chapters, let's pick on the chapter committee because Sam and I wrote that together. And it made sense to us at the time, right? It says basically what are the general goal. The scope here is not the actual scope, it's a bunch of tasks that we want to do. And a few of the things we want to get done. Whereas, Andrew, can you compare that to the events committee, please? The events committee sets out very specific goals and outcomes, what needs to happen. The scope and responsibilities, this is policy. This changes, it even conflicts with some additional policies by default, but by changing the responsibilities of who is doing what. So my point through all of this discussion is that some of our committees, and I would say the 3 other committees, should be slightly rechartered. The idea in it is not bad. It just needs to be more explicit about what is expected from them and how they are going to achieve it, what they need to be able to achieve that. Like I said, charter is policy and they're not written that way. I know the communications committee is running on the same template as the events charter, the events committee charter. So it seems to be a good fit. I would suggest leaning into that. I would like to ask the board liaisons to those various committees to go back to the committees and ask them to start working on rewriting the charter or updating the charters to fit what is needed. One thing I will note that was probably missing from the events committee charter, taking into account of who the members should be expected to be. For example, the events committee, should be people that have experience running OWASP events. That doesn't say that anymore. Just as one example. But generally speaking, it needs to be set out very specifically. Don't have control of the tabs because Andrew's gone. But if you take a look at the projects committee, it's basically here's some ideas what we want to be doing, and this is the next thing that we're going to be doing. Taking into account also the board liaison doesn't run the committee. The board liaison is not intended to run the committee. It's the point of contact, right? The board liaison should show up to the meeting, ask 2 questions, and shut up. Here's what we need. How's it going? And what do you need from us? Right? The committee, while the board is strategic, the committees are tactical. In other words, bridging that gap between the strategic and operational. And some extent, some of the time, it's also kind of a functional, meaning some of those things. So I think it's important to take back to the committees and ask them to rewrite or update their charters accordingly, taking that perspective into account and see how we move forward so that there's no ambiguity between the charter and the policy. So it's clear what the committee is supposed to be doing and allowed to be doing, so that we don't have those conflicts between the committees and the staff sometimes and the board and so on. Does that make sense? Don, I see you. Just 1 second. I just want to. What I'm saying, does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
It looks like you're kind of formulating some sort of requirements to the charters, right? But would you be willing to actually formalize that requirement? Because it's all good that what you just said in the past 3 minutes, but that needs to be formalized, maybe even as bullet points.
What you're saying, what should be in the charter?
Yeah.
Because
you're saying the existing charters are not up to scratch, because this is what should be in there, right? So let's just make it as a list of bullet points which are with the requirements, which should be, and suggest maybe a model, right? And this is my other question: are you suggesting that the chapter committee charter is a model charter, or the events committee charter is a model charter? Because I don't think neither of them are good, because they don't match what you were saying, and you also were mentioning things like policies as well, right? So conflicts with the policies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The charter is policy because we vote on it as policy, and it now becomes the policy of how that committee runs. It is effectively the policy of that subsection. And yes, there's a template for that we could take and share with them and use. I don't want to be prescriptive about what needs to go into that charter. I think that the committees need to write that charter themselves. Personally, this is my personal opinion. I mean, you might think otherwise, but it's rather it needs to meet these things, right? Goals and outcomes.
So, Avi, can I ask you, if you click on the committees again, because we do have a committees policy, and what you are describing is actually already in the committees policy. Yeah, you need to click on the actual policy here, committee 2.2 policy. That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can see if you scroll down, it's a charter, right? This is exactly what we say as a policy should be in the charter, right? So if you're unhappy with that, so this is what I'm saying, because what you were suggesting doesn't quite fit with the policy, and this is a voted on
that's
policy.
what he was saying, Sam. I think he was saying that none of the existing charters line up to this.
Yeah, but they line up to this, or what Avi was saying. If they don't line up to this, then we have no problem of aligning it, because
no. So yes, Ricardo is right. I'm saying the existing charters do not line up with this. I proposed something for the events committee. I worked with them and with the communications committee that does meet the requirements of the committee's policy, committee's 2.0 policy, but takes it half a step further to make it more useful and valuable. But it comes back to what Ricardo said. The existing charters don't meet what the policy says.
So my main problem with committees, I do want Dawn to actually. Dawn, you've had your hand up for a long time. Sorry, go ahead. Dawn?
You're on mute.
Yeah, just 2 things because I work on certain committees, I still don't understand the voting. Just so when you're redoing stuff, who's allowed to vote on things? There's still this whole gray area when votes are taken. So if that could be clarified, That would help a great deal.
Dawn, I think that is in the bylaws or one of the policies. It actually clearly states, I think the officers are allowed to vote.
That's what
I'll find
I
it for you and
said.
forward it to you.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but that's not what's happening. So it's whoever at the meeting is putting in votes, so, or making the decision. So it's a really gray area. Because it might not be official vote, but they're saying yes, yes. So it's a little gray area for me on that. But the other thing, just when you do charters, this is just that there is a line, in my opinion, and then we have to clarify this, between staff and the committees, and operationally, staff and Andrew get the final say. So they can't, in my opinion, unless I'm wrong, when it's stated, they can't tell us how to operationally say my work, which is happening, and it causes me a lot more work on certain topics. So if we can, when we do new committees, if we can clarify those things, I know it would make my life a lot easier. Thank you.
Mm. So, I mean, that operational line really needs to be drawn very hard. It is one of those problems where some committees have tried to get involved in certain processes that are operational and it just holds things up. I think the committees should be used as a panel of review. So they, like, for example, the Cairo Giza chapter thing, there should have been, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just bringing that up as an example. It should be a review process, not a operational process that the committees are involved in. All too often, like with the events committee, I've been to a couple of events committee meetings, and the problem that we've got is that they're involved heavily in speaker selection, keynote selection, and a whole bunch of other operational things. They almost certainly, this is one of those areas where we need to have some good guidelines so that we achieve the outcomes we're looking for in a timely fashion.
Mhm.
But they're not necessarily the people going out and doing the actual work, because otherwise it just slows us down.
So just to your point, Andrew, about the review committees and all that, that's what I would call functional, not operational. It's kind of at a lower level than operational even. But my understanding is that they're running it, but not actually doing well the reviews. So I think that's actually a good thing. It just, you're right, that it just needs to be very clear on how that is run.
Yeah. But there are some committees that aren't functional as well. And we do need, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Avi, that we need to have these goals and outcomes. And then there should be regular reviews. Are the outcomes actually happening? Because we do actually have some committees who are stuck. Like, as I said before, the project committee spends a lot of its time doing project reviews, which is an important function, don't get me wrong. It's just realistically, could that be done asynchronously and the committee meeting be used for other things?
But like I said, separation between tactical and functional.
Yeah.
And that needs to be drawn out very clearly.
Yeah. So that's my feedback.
So that being said, we have the 3 existing committees. Chapter committee, Sam, I believe you're the liaison there.
That's right. Yes.
Education, that's Ricardo.
Yes.
And projects, that's Steve. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Kevin and I both, but yes.
So does this make sense to you? Do you agree to take this back to the respective committees and ask them to do that, both for better governance and better flow and functionality, as Andrew was saying?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
certainly do that. I don't have a problem. Is there an expectation of time frame?
Realistically, not before Q1. So I'd like to aim for early Q1, if that's cool.
Okay.
And have the new work
Okay.
get on. Does that make sense?
That
I'm
makes sense.
suggesting
That's
describe it.
Okay, great.
Like, if we don't set a deadline, it won't get done. On the other hand, they already have a full plate, so I don't want to load too much.
Yeah.
On them.
And again, Avi and Andrew, just to clarify, right? So the OWASP committee policy, right, do we need to review the policy as the board? Or we're saying no, and then we're saying what after this policy is reviewed, then the committee should align their charters, or we're saying no, we have a policy and we think the existing committees do not have their charters aligned to this policy. So that's what we're asking the committees to do.
Think it's just the charters, right? I mean, that's what needs to be worked on, right?
I think it's a fair question, and we are kind of going through all the policies already anyway.
We could bring this one up and put it into the review queue.
I mean, we do need to change the charters anyway to align with this policy. I think there is some fine tuning that could be done here, but I don't think it's a badly written as it is. Is that fair?
Yeah, because I think the policy needs a review because there are a few things, for example, what Don has spotted as well, and I think also on the roles of the committee officers, and also just to clarify it.
Yeah.
Now that we have more committees and more experience of running it, because I think the policy was created first, and then we started creating the committees. And now that we have some experience of running these committees and some issues, I think the committee policy needs to be reviewed as well.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, I'll put it into the review pile.
Excellent. Getting back to our agenda, we have one more item update on communications committee. Andrew, that's for you.
So I spoke with Brian Reed at Global AppSec San Francisco, and we agreed to meet. That hasn't happened yet. I've SMS'd him. He is available Thursday and Friday. I will meet with him this week. We'll get that moving forward. Considering the policies of the committee's 2.0 policy requires 30 days review, I would imagine a December timeframe for the committee charter to come up. I'll socialize that once we've got it done. I believe Brian from discussions has moved on that quite far. It's just a matter of getting it over the line.
That's fantastic. He's more focused on the communication side and the not marketing, what we're not calling marketing. But we also define this committee as communications and outreach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And how much is he involved? How much is he involving that side of it as well?
That's actually an area that, he's got such tremendously awesome ideas on the marketing side and the communication side. I think we might need to bring some people in. I need to identify some volunteers to be the officers. That's on my monday.com task list, and I will try to find someone from the outreach committee. Now, I don't know if the board would prefer a set of fresh faces rather than who we've had in the past. I just honestly, some of the folks are very active in our community, and it'd be good to use that energy.
I had a Vinod, who many of you know, does a lot of the outreach for Cyclone DX and Dependency Track. Is very, very active on social and whatnot. Measures our engagement and tries to, improve things. He previously, this was about, I don't know, this was back in New York time frame, expressed interest specifically in the outreach thing. So we might want to, Andrew, you might want to reach out to him.
Yeah.
And see if that interest is still there or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll look through Amplify and see anybody else who regularly contributes there.
Regarding your question about, I think having fresh faces is a great idea, especially on leadership and setting the direction.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, there's still people that are active that were in the previous iteration. No reason not to leverage them as volunteers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Okay.
did talk to AppSec SF. I did talk to both Dustin
Mm-hmm.
and Tanya. especially when it comes to outreach to developer and DevOps types of communities. And I think both of them would be very powerful in that.
Yeah. So I think Tanya's interested, but she's worried about time.
And with Dustin.
Yeah. So it's really, I just don't want people to come to a meeting and think that's all they need to contribute. We've had committees like that in the past.
All right. Any other comments on the communications and outreach committee? Yes, Don.
Yeah, on outreach, remember
Sam.
we
Now let him go. Mine is not about the committee. I just want to say something
Okay.
before.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, on the outreach, I think we highlighted the importance of developer conferences, but I don't think we've done any developer conferences this year apart from maybe PyCon.
Yeah, we did PyCon.
There is a QCon San Francisco coming up. I keep mentioning QCon and I don't think anything happening on QCon. It's November 18th, 22nd in San Francisco. And if it is too late for that, the one in London is in April. And again, there are no community booths there, so they only take vendors, right? Even though some of them are big open source projects as well. So I think we should be, because this is one of the largest developer conferences, which attracts over 2,000 people.
So QCon or CubeCon?
QCon, both QCon and KubeCon. QCon, just a letter Q. So there's a QCon SF, QCon San Francisco, QCon London. KubeCon is cloud native, so it's a Linux Foundation conference.
Mm-hmm.
But QCon is not affiliated. So
I've also started being in contact with NDC. There's NDC Security in Oslo.
and this is very good, yes.
Yeah, they haven't really responded to this yet, but I'm trying to get in touch with them to get that started. I will also point out that we should be leaning more heavily on local conferences as well, not just the big ones. There are a ton of icons. There's local DevOps days all over the place. We're working with the local DevOps days in Israel next month as well. So we have a booth there and short speaking slot. Sorry, can't even speak. But that type of model, I think, is incredibly powerful as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would I would like to see the OWASP Foundation consider sponsoring actually the FOSDEM, which historically is in February in Brussels. I think it's February. It is purely an open source conference. And many of the talks there are security related. So it would be great to have OWASP presence there because last year we, SPDX and Linux Foundation, they did some sponsoring there as well as some other companies. But it would be good to get maybe some sponsorship agreements with FOSDEM.
Okay, no worries. I'll reach out to them. I do want to do PyCon again next year. I think that's a really important community that doesn't know much about us. And realistically, the Node.js conference, I think, is another really important conference for us to be at. We could keep on going down languages, but those two are well attended by developers, and we should be looking at speaking slots and things like that, as well as sponsoring. Cool. Okay. That's all I really had for you on that one.
All right, Don?
Just an FYI, and it might not be an issue. The next meeting is Thanksgiving week. Just putting that out there because I know in the past we've changed it. You might not want to change it, but I just want everyone to be aware of that. The November meeting.
That's a good point. It is on Tuesday. Is that an issue for anybody?
Most of the staff will not be there. I will be there.
Yeah.
So if we could keep the staff reports down to a minimum level, or give me advance notice of what you need, and I'll make sure it's in the slides, and we could go through the slides.
So,
Yeah, I don't have
let me
a
ask,
problem with that.
would it make sense to move it a week earlier?
It makes sense because I thought you were kind of packing up, Andrew.
I am packing up, but by the 26th, I'm packed. I'm in an Airbnb, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for a flight
Okay.
and trying to get unsubscribed from cable companies and things like that.
Good luck.
Luck. Yeah,
But
but I'm
apparently-
fine with that date. But yeah, I'm happy to move it as well.
No, it works better for me to actually be on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay, I didn't, just wanted a heads up just in case. That was it. Thank you.
So if all that, sounds like we're keeping it the same time?
Yep.
That will be, the next board meeting will be at November 26th at 12 PM US Eastern Time, which is the regular time. All that being said, any other business anybody wants to bring forward? In which case, I will move for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Oh, second.
Yes.
I heard Ricardo.
Ricardo for the win. In which case, it is moved and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you all
Bye.
very much. See you
All
next
right.
month.
Thanks
No
all.
worries.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.